Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome into Tider Insider TV. It's certainly a better evening than it would have been had Alabama lost.
Absolutely.
All right, that's for you, for sure. The show is brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. Alabama was in Auburn on Saturday at Jordan-Hare Stadium for the Iron Bowl, and it turned out to be a game for the ages, as it was the first overtime game ever in Iron Bowl history. It actually went to 4 overtimes, but I tell you what, for a large majority of the game, Rod, it was a nightmare for the Crimson Tide. Alabama started out painfully slow and was going uphill, it seemed like, the whole game. Our Stu McCann, Matthew Travis were down there, and Stu shot the game, got us this great video. But Alabama only had 74 total yards of offense in the first half. I mean, they could get nothing going. That was the only touchdown until Alabama scored late in the game. Auburn up 7-0. 10-0 to begin the fourth quarter. Alabama couldn't handle a snap on a field goal attempt. They really moved the ball well in the fourth quarter. But finally, with a couple minutes left, after they'd gotten a field goal to get down 10-3, Jordan Battle with the defensive player of the game. There's the made field goal. But Alabama had a play by Jordan Battle who kept Tank Bigsby not only from getting a first down, which would ice the game, but he held him up and drug him out of bounds, which stopped the clock. And that allowed Alabama then to get a stop on third down. Auburn had to punt, and the Crimson Tide went on one of the greatest drives in college football history. In a minute 35 left from the 3-yard line with no timeouts, Bryce Young took them 97 yards. They scored with 24 seconds to go on a 28-yard pass to freshman Ja'Cory Brooks, who caught 2 passes on that drive. He had 2 passes coming into the game. And in the fourth overtime, after the defense finally got a stop, freshman Kool-Aid McKinstry batting a ball away, John Mechie III beat Auburn's great cornerback,
Roger McCreary,
who had played a great game. There's one of the overtime touchdowns there. But Alabama wins it 24-22. Here's what Mechie had to say about the incredible comeback win.
I want to say a release, but the energy was crazy just because of just the adversity we had to go through in this game. Just bouncing back, getting back on track, fighting through all the external factors and everything that was going on, and just being able to win at the end. It's all about the win at the end.
All right, Rob, we're going to go through that game-winning drive and break it down in just a moment. But first, let's an overview of the game. Alabama's offensive line had trouble, to say the least. Damian George started at right tackle. He got abused. There's no other way around it. Had to replace him, bring in Chris Owens. Alabama gave up 7 sacks in the game. Had trouble running the ball. As I said, finally in the fourth quarter, they got it together. But what happened to the offense? Obviously, Jameson Williams going out in the second quarter on a targeting hurt, but they really had struggles against a pretty good Auburn defense, but not a defense that had been great this season.
They really struggled with pressure, and we've seen that happen. We saw it in the Texas A&M game. We saw what LSU did bringing pressure, and they had a lot of difficulty picking that up. Obviously, Bryce was sacked several times. What did it end up, Gary? 6, 7?
7
sacks. Yeah,
Alabama gave up 7 and got 6.
Yeah, it was a lot of pressure. I mean, Bryce, it's just, again, I say it's phenomenal the way he performed given all the pressure. And he hung in there. We talked about the great drive that he put together. Really difficult. But, this Alabama team, I thought offensively in the second half, about middle third quarter on, they were moving the ball steadily. They just could not finish the drives. You talked about the botched field goal. And then finally, when it counted, when they had to have it, Bryce put together the 97-yard drive. And, one of the great drives, again, in Iron Bowl history and Alabama football history.
Yeah, college football history.
Yeah.
Really. All right, on the other side, the positive, the Alabama defense, which has been often maligned this season under Pete Golding, they were phenomenal. I think a lot of the focus was on the Auburn defense because of Alabama's struggles, but let's just be honest. Alabama's defense was good from start to finish. They really never let up. They gave up 159 yards of total offense, held Tank Bigsby in check. Auburn scored 10 points on 2 short fields. Alabama was put in tough situations a couple of other times where Auburn had short fields, and not only did they not allow a touchdown, they wouldn't even allow a field goal. That defense was tough.
Probably start to finish, first play to last play, their best performance of the year, I think for sure, Gary. Outstanding performance, no question about that. Here's the thing. The week before, the defense was maligned, and the offense came up big. Obviously, Bryce set the record 559 yards passing. And then this week it was kind of reversed. Fortunately, the defense showed up, played really well because the offense struggled in this game, could not get going. It's kind of similar to the LSU game when they really struggled offensively. So you kind of wonder, can they put both sides together in a game?
If they do, they might have a shot to knock off Georgia. All right, let's go through that drive. Minute 35 to go, no timeouts from your 3-yard line. This is 3rd and 10. Rod, this is a phenomenal play by Bryce to find John Mechie.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, to be able to step up, Gary, and avoid the pressure. And again, he had to do it all game. To keep his poise, to be able to do that. Just a phenomenal play by Bryce Young. Here, the scramble for 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, set up a second
Uses
one.
his legs. Big one right here. This is Ja'Cory Brooks, his first big catch, a 21-yarder. And listen, they're getting out of bounds on these plays, too, to stop the clock. And maybe a play here that it wasn't as big as a touchdown, but that's a 4th and 7.
4th and 7. Yeah, you had to convert that or the game was over, and then here we go right here.
Yeah.
Ja'Cory Brooks with just a phenomenal adjustment there on the catch.
3rd and 10. Billingsley had caught the 4th and 7. Rodney, remember on 1st down, Bryce wanted that play then.
He did.
And Brooks broke off the route.
He did.
They went right back to it on 3rd down.
They did. And sometimes people say, well, you know, you got Ja'Cory Brooks and look how well he's playing. And yeah, he did. But sometimes, Gary, when you have inexperience, you do things like that. There's miscommunication, didn't make the adjustment when he had that play on 1st down. So, again, there's reasons sometimes when young players aren't necessarily contributing as much as some people think they should be.
That drive was so heart-stopping, but let's keep in mind, too, Auburn played really well in the overtimes as well. Both teams were flawless in the overtimes until McKinstry gets the pass knocked down to open the door on the 2-point conversion. But Alabama scored a touchdown, Auburn scored a touchdown. Auburn kicked a 49-yard field goal. Reichard countered with a clutch field goal. Both teams scored on the first 2-point conversion tries. Finally, when the door was open, John Mechie made a move, again, on a Roger McCreary's going to be a first-round corner possibly. He turned him inside out on that little route to the pylon.
He did. You know, and I would say this, too. When you're talking about Will Reichard's field goal, Gary, that was clutch. I mean,
Absolutely.
It was 20-17. And you've got a new holder, James Burnett. I mean, he's only, held it a couple of times in that game. I mean, this is high pressure.
All the pressure in the world.
He gets the ball down. Reichard nails the kick. I mean, that's big. And then you talked about Kool-Aid, McKinstry. What a great play because he trailed the receiver across the back of the end zone to make that play.
And stepping in last second for Jalen Armour-Davis, who tried to go in the game and in warm-ups decided that they couldn't go. And the freshman stepped in there and made big plays. And it was a game of big plays for a game that was 10-0 into the 4th quarter. That 4th quarter and those overtimes made it one of the most exciting games that we've ever seen.
I mean, in the 3rd quarter, Alabama's scoreless.
Yeah.
You know, we're sitting there going, you know, what's going on?
You know, it's
well, with 24 seconds left, they've got 3 points.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, if somebody would have told you at that time Alabama finishes this game with 24 points, you'd have said, you know,
it wouldn't have come like that. All right, it's now time for Coach Talk. After an incredible Iron Bowl victory, Alabama has to turn its focus to the SEC Championship. Had to do it quickly on Sunday. They're going to face off against the top-ranked Georgia Bulldogs. In fact, the latest college football playoff ranking, Georgia number 1, Michigan 2, Cincinnati at number 4, Alabama State at number 3. But here's what both head coaches, Nick Saban and Georgia's Kirby Smart, said about this weekend's matchup.
They're going to play a great team in Georgia. Georgia's the number 1 team in the country. They've been the most consistent team, you know, all year long in terms of how they've sustained their performance and played at a high level, dominated the competition just about every game that they've played.
I've got immense amount of respect for Nick and the job he's done and what he's done in Alabama the time I was there and since I've left. But he'll be the first to admit it's the phone calls Monday through Thursday and the official visits Saturday and Sunday that get the job done in terms of the players. But it does take a complete organization and great leadership, and he's provided that.
Kirby Smart learned a lot from Nick Saban, but the number 1 thing he learned is go get great players, and he has done that at Georgia. Still to come on TITV, we'll take a look at what we believe are Alabama's keys to pulling an upset victory in Saturday's SEC Championship game. Remember, Alabama's a 6.5-point dog. And the Crimson Tide finds themselves, as we said, in a very unfamiliar spot as underdogs in Georgia. We'll talk about what that means and when was the last time that Alabama was not favored in a game. We'll have that for you coming up, as well as your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, the phone number 205-348-9882. That's 205-348-WVUA. And you can call us at that number or email us at the address on your screen or tweet at us using the hashtag TITV. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to TITV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. After an unbelievable Iron Bowl This one, Alabama pulled out instead of it going the other way in one of those dramatic games. The Crimson Tide now getting ready for the SEC Championship game this Saturday. Alabama and top-ranked Georgia. It's number 3 versus number 1. We'll play at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. In what for Alabama could be a play-in game. You know the Tide wins, they're in. If they don't win, then they could still possibly get in, but going to have some help. Georgia's in, win or lose, but Georgia, obviously, if they win, will win the SEC Championship and also be the number 1 seed. And let's don't forget, the SEC Championship's important. It's a big deal, too. Georgia 12-0. Rodney, they've only given up 83 points, and really 69 by their defense. That's phenomenal. Georgia's a 6.5-point favorite against Alabama. But let's get to that Georgia defense. And clearly, Nick Saban says they're a complete team, and he's right. Offensively, they do what they need to do. They're very efficient. And Stetson Bennett, the mailman, has been delivering for them all year. But defensively, you know I've said this many times, the game has changed. I didn't think you could play that kind of defense anymore. In fact, they've given up 83 points, 69 by their defense. Clemson's second in the country in scoring defense. If you double Georgia's output, they'd still be number 1. Clemson gave up 180 points this season. I mean, this is incredible now.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, Gary, when you look at this Georgia defense, it's the passion. The passion that they play with. I mean, they're fundamentally sound. I mean, here, look at the pass rush here. They're strong inside in the interior. Jordan Davis, number 99. It's a reason why he's a Heisman Trophy candidate as an interior defensive lineman. I mean, they just, you know, this is a team defensively, Gary. I mean, they simply refuse to give up points. I mean, I'm talking late in the game when time's running down. It's a challenge for them. They do not want to give up points. This is a nasty defense, obviously. You know, you just can't say enough about them, actually.
What does Alabama have to do? I mean, we saw them really struggle for 3+ quarters to move the ball at all against Auburn. Now you're playing the best defense in the country. What does Alabama have to do offensively to have some success?
You know, the issue is Alabama's offensive line. I mean, you're beat up. Perhaps you'll start your third center, Seth McLaughlin. I'm not really sure.
May have one scholarship running back?
Yeah, you might, yeah. I mean, again, with Brian Robinson's status, Trey Sanders may get the start. You may have to play Christian Leary, who's really more of a slot receiver, play him some at running back. We'll see what happens. But, you know, I really think for Alabama, it's blocking that defensive front is going to be really difficult. So, will Alabama spread the field? Will they go 5 wide? Will they go 4 wide with a tight end, 3 wide, 2 tight ends, no back, empty set? I think these are kind of things they have to do. They're going to have to spread Georgia out, I think, Gary. I think they're going to have to go up-tempo, go fast a lot. I think that messes with Kirby Smart's blitz packages, the things that he likes to do defensively. So I think you spread them out. Does that mean you don't try to run the ball? No, I think you have to try to establish get some good runs mixed in there. So, but I think if you can spread them out, that will help your run game.
On the other side, Alabama's defense was fantastic against Auburn. Georgia's offense is underrated simply because their defense is so dominant. I'm wrong a lot, but I was right about this one, Rodney. You remember me telling you early in the year, Kirby was going to stay with Stetson Bennett.
Right.
Because he does exactly what he wants him to do, what he needs him to do. All this talk about JT Daniels, they got to have JT Daniels. Kirby's playing the quarterback he wants to play. And he is efficient, and they do a good job. But Alabama defensively, I think, has an opportunity in this game to hold Georgia down scoring-wise. Would you agree with that?
This is what I think is the key to the game. I think the Alabama defense is the key to this game because if they can shut down the run game, there you see James Cook. Remember last year he had an 80-yard touchdown reception against Alabama too. So Alabama has to slow down this run game. Georgia has 3 really good running backs, probably 4 if you include Kendall Milton. He's a good player. But they have to stop the run game, Gary, slow that down. And I think number 19, the tight end, Brock Bowers, somehow they've got to try to neutralize him.
Yeah, he's a player.
And if you can do that, and if you can, remember Alabama did this last year. They got Stetson Bennett to moving around. Look, he's really good moving around. He can throw on the run, but if you can get him moving around, put pressure on him, force him to throw some balls, bat some balls up, get some interceptions like they did last year. If they can do those things, then I think Alabama's defense will be the key in this game to helping Alabama setting the offense up.
All right, still to come, of course, our predictions for the game. You want to stick around for that. Also, Alabama basketball was in Orlando last week for the ESPN Events Invitational. We'll tell you how the Tide did, and they didn't do too badly. And up next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information there on your screen. Again, call us at 205-348-WVOA. That's 348-9882. You can email us and tweet at us as well. We'll be right back with the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only Tider Insider TV. Alabama basketball in Orlando for the ESPN Events Invitational, and the Tide got patinoed. Rick Pitino is a lot like Nick Saban. He's one of the best to ever do it, and he had a brilliant game plan. Iona beat Alabama 72-68, but the Tide bounced back, beat a good Drake team by 80-71. And then in the fifth-place game, really I thought this was the game that kind of showed Alabama's potential. They outscored Miami 64-33 in the second half, or 63-34, I'm sorry, and wound up winning that game by a sizable margin. They did drop to 16th in the latest AP poll. They're going to have a tough time next Saturday night after Alabama plays Georgia in the SEC championship game. Alabama's playing Gonzaga, number 3 ranked Gonzaga in basketball out there in the battle for Seattle. So that'll be a good barometer for Alabama basketball. All right, welcome back into the program. Let's get to some phone calls. First up tonight is our pal Sammy up there in Walker County. Hey, Sammy.
Hey, Gary, Rodney. Good talking to y'all guys. Y'all broke it down just exactly like I would, Gary, and nobody had mentioned what a great job the Alabama defense had played until you did, and that was my take. That's what I was going to comment on, because as great as Auburn played on defense, we even played even better. And we really showed out on defense, I thought. But the question I was going to ask, do y'all really think Doug Marone's going to make it to year 2 on the offensive line at Alabama?
All right, good question, Sammy. I think he will if he wants to. I mean, I understand. But look at what that offensive line had last year, man. You had a number 1 pick in Alex Leatherwood. You had a guy who went early in the second round in the big center.
Yeah, Landon Dickerson.
Landon Dickerson. You had Deontay Brown, who was drafted in the NFL. That was a dominant offensive line. This has been a work in progress. And as much as I love Evan Neal, I think he was better at right tackle than he is at left tackle. So I'm not saying it's not Marone's responsibility, but he's not coaching some of them guys that they had last year.
Yeah, it's far from the same offensive line. When you really look at it, there's 4 guys in new spots because Evan Neal slid from right to left. And, so you've got a lot of new pieces there. Not only that, Gary, you've got a new quarterback that's dealing with things in terms of pressures, in terms of making the protection calls, all of these things. It's all about being on the same page. It's all about cohesiveness. Cohesiveness comes with experience. Mm-hmm. This is and again, I'm not making excuses. They've had some injuries. I mean, you had Seth McLaughlin in at center, and he did a great job. Mm-hmm. But again, he doesn't have a lot of experience. So, for people to blame Doug Marrone, I really think that's kind of a little bit, and I'm not saying Sammy was blaming him, but I think it's a little bit unfair because a lot of people have put a lot of blame on Marrone and O'Brien.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind, Alabama's still one of the most prolific offenses in the country, even after the Auburn game. So, I mean, they have won 11 games. So, offensively, they've done some things. All right, we'll be back with more phone calls and emails right after this here on TITV. Recruiting never stops. In fact, the first signing period coming up here in a couple of weeks. Alabama flipping 4-star running back Jamarian Miller from Tyler, Texas, from the Longhorns to the Crimson Tide. This is a big pickup, Rod.
I really like Jamarian Miller. Gary's got it all. I mean, he's a guy that's really built low to the ground, powerful guy, speed, can catch. Watch his catch right here. Yeah. He just took it over the shoulder.
Big pickup for Alabama. All right, let's get back to the phone lines. Rick is with us from Regent Forest. Hey, Rick, good evening.
Hey, fellas, appreciate you taking my call. Execution by both lines is critical in this game right here. If we don't tighten our acts up and everything and get it together mentally, and everybody needs to be where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there, this could get ugly. But I honestly believe that Alabama's going to play their best game of the season. Certainly hoping that. Thanks so much for taking my call.
Yeah, Rick.
I hope y'all had a
You too. And you're right. I mean, you got to execute against Georgia, because if you do make dumb mistakes, they don't need a lot of help. It could get ugly. Flip side of that is maybe Alabama's due to play its best game. We talk a lot about how Alabama gets everybody's best shot. Maybe Georgia gets Alabama's best shot.
Well, there's a little bit of pressure on Georgia. Yeah. Think about that. I mean, here they are, everyone's saying they're going to dominate Alabama, and this is a really good Alabama team. I mean, maybe it's not what it has been, according to some, but I think Georgia's going to have a little bit of pressure on them, so it'll be interesting to see how they respond.
All right, let's get to an email, and this is a good one. When was the last time that Alabama football was an underdog? Well, a lot of people say that Alabama was a favorite by the time the game started, but it's listed. We went to the ESPN stats. It was listed as Alabama being a 1-point underdog in 2015 at Georgia. Alabama won that by 28 with Derrick Henry going wild. Before that, it was the 2009 SEC Championship game. Alabama was a 5-point underdog against Florida and won that one outright. Interestingly enough, 2010 Iron Bowl, the comeback, Alabama was a 3.5-point favorite in that game. All right, thanks for the phone calls and the emails. We're going to come back and give you our predictions on a beautiful evening in Tuscaloosa. What do we think about the game? How it's going to play out? You'll find out next. And welcome back to Tider Insider Television. It's game week, not just any game week. It's the SEC Championship. Georgia #1, Alabama #3 in the latest BCS, not anymore, college football playoff rankings. But Alabama really needs to win this one, Rodney. You start us off.
Well, you know, everybody's talking about that Georgia defense, but what about the Alabama defense? I'm calling it right now. I think this is the difference in the game. I'm expecting Alabama defensively to put Alabama in a position, to put the offense in a position to have success, to win this game. I'm picking the upset, Gary. I'm going Alabama 24-20.
Rodney, I can't go with you this week. Listen, you know, if there's good news, I picked Alabama to lose in 2015 at Georgia, and Alabama beat them by 28 points. I'm looking for a path to victory for the Crimson Tide. I just can't find it. Now, I would never count out Nick Saban in Alabama. You'd be crazy to. So I'm not saying that they can't win, but objectively breaking down the game, I think Georgia's a better football team. And I think Georgia is a more consistent football team. I think it's Georgia's time. Sometimes it's just your time. It was Alabama's time in 2009 against Florida. It was Michigan's time this past weekend against Ohio State. I think it's Georgia's time. I'm going to go with the Bulldogs 27-17 in this one, Rod. But again, I picked Georgia to win in 2015. And so that might be a good thing.
No, I think you make a lot of great points. This is a great Georgia team. Okay, it's going to take a monumental effort for Alabama to win. But I'm going with Alabama.
Well, it would be sweet.
Yeah.
I think this has already been a great season. Contrary to what some fans say, I think this has been an incredible season for Alabama after what they lost last year. Look at how most of these teams that win a championship, what they do the next couple of years. Alabama to come back and play the way they have, it's been a great season. It could be an incredible season with a victory on Saturday, Rod.
Be amazing.
SEC Championship. All right, that's going to do it for Tider Insider TV. We'll have a replay tonight at 10:30 here on WVUA 23, or you can catch it anytime online at WVUA23.com. Also, Rodney will have it linked at TiderInsider.com. We're going to leave you with some Alabama football practice from earlier today. They worked out inside the Hank Crisp indoor facility. Their secondary coach, Charles Kelly. Have a good night, everybody. Roll Tide.